Hi again. Last week, OpenAI had their Dev Day, and there were quite many announcements. And two of the biggest announcement which I can talk of today is GPT-4 Turbo and their Assistant API. And today we will go quite deep into Assistant API. Why? Because one of the use case that we normally talk about in my tutorials is uh, RAG model, where we can retrieve the information, pass it on to the model, LLM model, and get the appropriate response for our questions. And I just wanted to showcase how easy it is now compared to our previous way, where we had to spin up the database, we had to generate embeddings, we had to do some searches of semantics, get the retrieval data, and then pass it on to the model. Here they have put everything into one single API, and we'll see it. But before proceeding, I just wanted to talk about an assistant API. What basically it is, um, uh, it just consider it as an agent which can perform tasks. Uh, we'll see it in our demo how it works, and it can leverage basically some tools and knowledges that it has, and then it can use those particular things to respond to our queries. As of now, Assistant can support tools like Code Interpreter, which I'm pretty sure we would have seen it in previous tutorials. It supports retrieval, and this is the biggest gain. I believe it's going to be a game changer. And of course, it supports function calling, an improved function calling. That's how I'll put it as. And another important thing is it can access persistent threads. Now, what do I mean by that? Um, it means that when you pass the messages to a thread or to an assistant, it keeps the log of it. You don't have to, you know, concatenate into a message list and send the whole list every time. That means it's gonna drastically reduce our token consumption. Uh, these threads, by the way, are stateful. That means it keeps the memory of all the previous messages that were sent by user or the messages that were created by assistant. And again, another very important property of assistant is it can access files. Of course, these files can have multiple purpose, like files for fine tuning or files for retrieval. And that's going to be our use case today. Just on a side note, GPT-4 Turbo was announced. Um, I just thought it would be important to talk about it. I'm not going to take more than a minute or so. Uh, the knowledge cut is as of April 2023. It has longer input context. That means earlier it was 32K. Now it's 128K tokens. That means almost 300 pages of input can be given in a single prompt. That's huge. That's huge. That means you can pass it on the whole textbooks to get an answer to a given question. It's also much cheaper compared to GPT-4, and it can call function, or function calling is much better in GPT-4. Also, we have JSON mode as an output, and we also have reproducible output, has more consistency in GPT-4. Okay, GPT-4 Turbo is not the topic of the day. The topic of the day is using Assistant API for RAG, retrieval augmentation generation, for our purpose. So what I'm going to do is I have one PDF file which is chapter 1 of 11th standard um computer textbook, and what we're going to do is we're going to pass this file to our model, our assistant and then ask some question. And the last time we asked about, it was exactly the same document that we passed, and we asked question like how many types of memory it has. And today I'll be asking some more complex question just to see if can we really get rid of whole uh, embeddings and databases and search algorithms and semantic searches and things like that. All those things are done by OpenAI, and I think this is going to be a game changer, especially for some use cases like teachers and students or lawyers and you know people who don't use IT systems on day-to-day life.
Okay, so in the demo, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an assistant, and then we're gonna create an instance of a thread. So we're gonna say create thread, and after that we're gonna add a message to a thread. So this is basically a message. No, this is something like hello. And then what we're gonna do basically is something called as run the assistant. So we're gonna just take the whole thread and then we're gonna say please run thread, or they don't call it as run thread, they call it as run assistant. And only when you run, what um, the agent or assistant is gonna look at the whole history of messages, and then it will execute and it will insert its own response in the thread in a chronological order. And then fifth thing, obviously what we're gonna do is we're gonna display message to user, right? Yeah, this is going to be the whole flow. One small thing though, because we are going to do a RAG, we need to give our assistant access to tools and of course access to files. I think this is quite important if you want to achieve our RAG. Okay, I think we are good enough to go. So just to list, first thing is create assistant, second is create thread, third is add message, fourth is run assistant, and fifth is display response. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so let's go ahead and create assistant. But before that, we'll have to do, as usual, some imports. OpenAI, import OS, and import time. I'll just let you know at later point of time. And then we're gonna create an instance of OpenAI client. I mean, earlier it used to be OpenAI dot something, but starting from let's say 1.0 of OpenAI, they have recommended that we create an instance of a client and we use it for execution. Okay, and then of course we're gonna create an assistant now. So let's say student assistant, is equal to client dot beta. They are still in beta for assistant API. So over the period of time, this beta will go away. Dot assistants dot create. And now we see here we can give him a model. We can give GPT-4 Turbo. So it's called as GPT-4 1106 preview. Yeah, that's the name as of now, but or eventually it is going to be GPT-4 Turbo. We know that. And then we're going to give him a name. Let's call it as 11th class student assistant, for example. I don't know. And then we can give him an instructions. Okay, instructions is equal to, for example, you can say that you are helpful assistant who can read, understand uh, textbooks and answer all the relevant relevant questions. Okay, and then what we need to give is we need to give him the tools that he's going to have access to. As of now, they have access, as previously said, they have access to code interpreter, retrieval or function calling. And what we're going to give access to is retrieval. So I think the way it is given is type retrieval. Okay, let me very quickly check an example from how it works. Yeah, tools is equal to, okay, let me just copy it from here, or yeah, I just don't typos. Yeah, code instead of code interpreter, it's going to be retrieval. Okay, and another important thing is we'll have to give him file IDs. That means we need to have a file uploaded. So what we're going to do is 11th class or chapter 1, let's call it as chapter 001 is equal to OpenAI dot files dot create, and we just gonna say file is equal to open KECS PDF, and it's gonna be read bytes, and purpose is gonna be, it's gonna be a literal, right? So purpose is gonna be uh, for assistant and not for file tuning. Okay, let me see if this works. Oh, perfect, it worked. So let me see. Yeah, we got a file ID. Okay, and status is already processed. So perfect. And we just gonna give here file IDs is a list. And I'm just gonna say chapter 1 dot ID. Okay, let me see if this works. Super. Okay, let me just see. Yeah, we got an assistant ID back. So second step was for us to create an instance of a thread, right? Create thread. So I'm just gonna say it rag thread is equal to, again, client dot beta dot threads dot hopefully create. Okay, what parameters does it take? Many, but we are just gonna create an instance and add messages at later point of time. Remember that the thread has a statefulness. That means it can remember all its history and it's persistent. So please keep that in mind. And therefore we can add list of messages already now, or we can keep on adding at later point of time. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Then the step number 3 is add message to thread. Okay, so let's say uh, message is equal to client dot beta dot thread. As I said, we say we're gonna add message to assistant, but it's basically adding message to a thread. So thread dot messages dot create. And of course, we'll have to tell this message is being added to which thread. And we're gonna say thread ID is equal to rack thread dot ID. And we have to say what kind of message is ours. So as I said, um, we are going to tell him, okay, let me, um, please read the whole PDF file and answer me a question like, okay, list generations of microprocessor, for example. And then we can ask, okay, I don't know, which generation had multi-core. Okay, let's say, okay, role is equal to user and content is equal to according to book, or let's not say according to book, list all the generations of microprocessor which generation had multi-core. Okay, I think that's the one, right? Multi-core. So it should say first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then finally it should say fifth generation had a microprocessor, right? Okay. Again, just to make it look a little bit better. Anything else? So we have given it content, role, and file IDs. We don't have to give the file IDs because we are we we are going to use all the files that are part of assistant when we're gonna run it. Okay, let me see if it works. Yeah, so message has been added in the thread. Okay, so this is the thread ID. Rack.thread ID. Yeah, we did not see here the thread ID that was generated, right? Yeah, it should be the same. Yeah, IBES. Okay, and now the most important thing is we're gonna run the whole thread stack. So as of now, it's only one message we have, but we have to run the whole thread stack. So let's call it as run is equal to client dot beta dot threads dot messages dot, and it's called as, no, not messages, threads dot runs, yeah, exactly, dot create. and when we run the thread, basically it's gonna ask me which thread to be executed and against which assistant ID you're gonna use it. So if you look at this, maybe there is going to be someday at later point of time when we are going to have a fleet of assistants or agents, and they can execute the same thread one after another. So you're getting, it's going to be set of agents who are going to work on a given task basically. But for now, it's going to be one assistant ID or one agent for us who is working on one thread. So yeah, let's give him thread ID is equal to rag thread.id, and assistant ID is going to be student assistant.id. Okay, and if you see run and its status, as of now it is queued. So as I said, the activity is going to be quite asynchronous. So it's submitted, and whenever it's possible, it may require access to code interpreter or files or huge amount of other data. So it may take a lot of time. So for us, it's a good practice is that we always keep on checking the status of run, and once it is completed, then only we go to the next step. So how do we check? So it's again client dot beta dot threads dot run dot retrieve, and of course it's going to take and run id, right? Run dot or run id is equal to dot id, and of course it's also going to take thread id. Okay, and hopefully this time, because we have spent some time, its status is going to be completed. um, yeah, it was a very small assignment, very small prompt, so it did not take too long, but sometimes it can take too long. So good practice would be to have an, let's say, a loop waiting for 1 second if the status is not completed. So let's put that, I think, if time permits, while run dot status dot lower is not equal to, let's not do any spelling mistakes there. I just want to do, let's wait for 1 second, something like that. Of course, we don't have to wait here because status is anyway completed. Okay, and now we finally want to retrieve the message, right? So message is gonna be dot, instead of create, it's gonna be list. So let's say response is equal to list, and we have to give threads, thread id is equal to rag dot, okay, super. Yeah, it's too big, so let's say for message in response print message, we should get two messages here. One message is our prompt, what we had, and one message is what the response that it created. So we don't need too much of a thing. What we need is message dot content dot content dot text dot value. Yeah, text dot value. Perfect. So this is the response it created. Actually, it's a HTML kind of response, but yeah, it's we can definitely read it into text. So it says the generations of micro their core features are listed below: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, uh, with maximum. The generation introduced and it says this generation introduced multi-core processor. So yeah, you can really see that the whole um, document was read, it referred, and it answered our question. Pretty cool, right? So we really did not had to leave our uh, let's say uh, Python IDE. uh, Last time we had been into databases and we had to do lot of pre-processing, right? So it has given a tremendous energy, tremendous power to a simple user with just few lines of code, um, less than 20 lines of code. You can have the power of RAG in your hands. Let's talk a little bit about the cost. So it was around 20, yeah, some, I don't know, 26 pages of file. um, it did all its embedding, it did storing everything, and let's see how much did it cost us. So let's go to usage. What day is it today? Today is 19th of November. Let me refresh it. 19th of November. And if you see GPT-4 Turbo, that is my cost. $0.04. That means 4 rappens. Absolutely nuts. Because if you had to spin up a data, it would cost you around $60 minimum a month. And of course, you have to keep it running even when you don't need it. Here, I can upload a file, use it for my purpose, and I can delete it after my usage is done. People, I believe, will be using this in a very, very mm, uh, nice way. And I'm pretty sure, especially students or a single user or a small scale industry people, small organizations will definitely make use of RAG within Assistant API. I hope you guys liked it and you would like to do your hands dirty on it. So I wish you all the best. If you have, as I said, I normally always say, if you have any concerns, questions, queries, please reach out to me and I'll try to help you. Have a great day, guys.